So you started to talk about culture in a way, the mindset that drives the attitude, the curiosity. Tell us a little bit about the culture of CWB and how HR is playing a role in driving and supporting the culture of the organization.
Yeah, I'd love to tell you a little bit of the story. We've done a lot of work on culture in the last couple of years, and I'm very proud of what we've done. First of all, I'd start with saying we would view sort of culture as really being held at the top of the organization by the executives more than anyone. And so while our HR team is a very important enabler to what the culture looks like, we don't view ourselves as owning it. And so we really do work on it very cross-functionally with leaders. And in fact, we view culture where it sits in the organization is actually in our strategic planning process, rather than it being sort of, again, an HR process. A couple of years ago, as we were sort of working through our long-range strategic planning, we recognized that we had important work to do on culture. And culture is one of those things, if you're standing still, I think you're falling behind. So we really said, let's go out and do some very focused work around what we think. We have this very ambitious strategic agenda in front of us. What do we really think the culture needs to look like to deliver that strategy? And we viewed it as sort of the fundamental fabric on which it all sits. We actually engaged a third-party consulting firm that helped us really identify key aspects of our culture today, but also what are things that we need in the future, again, to be parts of our culture that maybe aren't so much there today. And we did a very rigorous process of sort of self-assessment, and we engaged all 2,000 at the time employees in the organization in that sort of co-creation of what are the best parts of what it feels like, how do we stretch ourselves in new and important ways. It sounds simple, but we came up and lots of, again, other organizations have done it. I think it's about how we've done it that's been different. 5 new values for the organization. And they really are about foundationally the behaviors that we believe we need to show up with to deliver our brand promise. So everything about how we build our policies, our practices are based on these 5 values. And they are people first, relationship gets results, embrace the new, the how matters, and inclusion has power. And underneath each of those, we've actually got a lot of sort of behaviorally anchored statements that we've then built into essentially all of our key processes, people processes, whether that's communications, whether it's talent acquisition, succession, objective setting, rewards and recognition. Everything speaks to those values and this piece of, that it can't just be the performance that matters of an individual. It also has to be how they show up from a behavior and culture standpoint.
One of the beautiful things that I have observed in your organization that is during the pandemic, you really anchored your communication and the values as well.
Yeah.
Do you mind telling us a little bit about that?
This is the great thing, right, about values. When you really lean into them, they really help you with decision making. As we got into the pandemic, we said, there are 2 of our stakeholder groups that are perhaps more important than all the others, and that is our people and our clients. People first, and relationships get results. And everything we did, how we decided how to enable technology, how we decided what sort of time off provisions to give people, how we determined how we would manage objective setting during a really difficult time period, everything came down to what does it look like to show up well demonstrating those values. It was a simple but unifying thing that we did for the organization that kind of worked from an alignment standpoint, top to bottom. And have we had challenges to that along the way? You bet we have. But when you go back to it and you say, okay, let's apply our values here. What do we think we might do? It often crystallizes what the action looks like. The other piece that's really important to all of it, though, is relentless listening. We have developed so many listening and asking practices in our organization, and so many ways that you sort of try and break down that process of hearing people and really understanding what their experience is like. We've changed our engagement survey provider. We've put in place things like an employee insights community that every time we put in place a process a large scale and process improvement, we have this insights community that we can go to, and we can really kind of have them poke holes in it and sort of challenge our assumptions and tell us what we're missing. We have exponentially expanded our employee represented groups in the organization. So these are groups of sort of people with common interests or backgrounds. And it's really all about giving people voice.